Good day, everyone. Today, I will be discussing the theories of intelligence. I am Dianis Tipolarlaya, the reporter of today's video. Let us first talk about the Robert Sternberg's triarchic theory of intelligence. Sternberg considers intelligence as a mental activity directed towards purposive adaptation of selection and shaping real-world environment relevant to one's life. He thinks Gardner's multiple intelligence are better viewed as individual talents. It is according to Omrod 2015. Sternberg asserts that intelligent behavior is an interplay of three factors, namely, environmental context in which the behavior occurs, the way in which previous experiences are brought to bear on a particular class, and cognitive processes required by the task, while other researchers have identified different components of intelligence. So Sternberg focused on only three domains, namely, first is the practical intelligence. So this is the ability to do well in formal and informal educational settings, adapting to and shaping one's environment, or what we call street smarts. Second is the experiential intelligence. So it is the ability to deal with the novel situations, ability to think in novel ways, ability to effectively automate ways of dealing with novel situations so these are easily handled in the future. And lastly, the third one, the componential intelligence. It is the ability to process information effectively. It is metacognitive, executive performance, and knowledge acquisition components that help steer in the thought of processes. In a sense, Sternberg's approach to the field of intelligence is similar to that of Gardner. However, the focus of Gardner lies in identifying specific intelligences aligned with academic disciplines or occupations, while Sternberg focuses on helping people develop components of intelligence that will help them perform best in whatever they do. So Sternberg believes that intelligence can be improved with study and practice. Some of his work focuses on street smarts versus school smarts. He believes people are good and talented in one of these areas but not on the other. This has to do with the idea that type of learning acquired out of school is different from acquired in school. Hence, teachers who are skillful in using project-based approach to teaching and learning can help students design projects consistent with their learning abilities and interest. Now let's move on to the David Perkins analysis of the research studies on the measurement of IQ programs for developing better IQ. So Perkins, 1995 in Theories of Intelligence, strongly supports Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence. He came up with the assertion that intelligence has three major components or dimensions. First is the neural intelligence. So what is neural intelligence? This is attributed to the efficiency and precision of one's neurological system. A high level of neural efficiency and precision can be achieved if at the time of pregnancy the mother was on vitamins and other nutrition supplements or did not use drugs, alcohol, or was not exposed to dangerous or toxic chemicals and substances. Second is the experiential intelligence. Refers to one's accumulated knowledge and experience in different areas. It is thought of as the accumulation of one's expertise. People who live in rich or stimulating environments comparatively have an intellectual advantage over those who live in less stimulating environments. And third is reflective intelligence. It refers to one's broad based on strategies for learning, for attacking problems, and for approaching intellectually challenging tasks. This is the ability for reflective persistence, systematization, and imagination, self-monitoring, self-regulation, and self-management. In the book Smart Schools that Perkins wrote in 1992, he pointed out research evidence that education can be considerably improved by more appropriate teaching, focusing on higher order cognitive skills, and the use of project-based learning. Again, this suggests the importance of practice, training, and experience in improving intelligence. Hope you understand those few theories of intelligence because we were going to move forward to John Piaget's theory of intellectual development. This theory asserts that the developing child builds intellectual structures or schemas, mental maps, or network concepts for understanding and responding to physical experiences in the environment. A child's cognitive structures grow in sophistication as he grows older and as he gains experience with his environment. Following are Piaget's stages of intellectual development. First, the sensory motor stage. Approximately 0 to 2 years old, the child learns through reflexes, senses, and movement. The child's thinking involves seeing, hearing, smelling, moving, touching, tasting, and the like. Through constant interaction with the environment, the child builds a set of concepts about reality and how it works. The child does not know that physical objects exist even they are not seen. So, object permanence. Okay, so let's move on to the second one. Pre-operational stage, approximately 2 to 7 years. At this stage, the child begins to develop language and begins to use symbols to represent objects. Generally, he thinks in the present and has difficulty with the past and the future, cannot yet conceptualize in abstract terms, and needs concrete physical situation to understand. Has difficulty understanding the point of view of another person. Next is concrete operational stage, 7 to 11 years. As physical experience accumulates, the child starts to build logical structures that explains his physical experiences. He starts to solve problems not only with concrete objects, but with abstract ideas as well. Understand past, present, and future, can think logically about concrete problems. Next is formal operation. 11 to 15. By this time, the individual has developed mental structures that enable him to do abstract reasoning, can think hypothetically and deductively, can solve problems in a logical fashion. Thinking approximates that of an adult and includes conceptual reasoning. As a way of understanding matter, the theories that explains the nature of intelligence, an attempt has been made to categorize and come up with a system and put in proper perspective what intelligence is all about. This categorizing process looks at theories of intelligence as belonging to two groups: factor theories and cognitive theories of intelligence. These are the theories. First is the Guilford structure of intellect. Second is the Cattle-Horn fluid and crystallized intelligence. Gardner's multiple intelligence. Factor theories. Unifactor. The Spearman's two-factor. Thorndike's multifactor. Thurstone's primary abilities. And the Vernon's hierarchical theory. Thus far, what have been presented are definitions and theories of intelligence. At best, they are abstract ideas, which means that the concept of intelligence need to be further studied. However, Gardner made an attempt to define intelligence and its components in terms of behavioral indicators. These are behaviors presumed to indicate or suggest the presence or absence of that intelligence, and which are observable. However, the study of intelligence has reached a more advanced stage than reliance on behavioral indicators by the development of tests or tools that measure it. Thus, intelligence tests whose validity have been established by their developers should be a more reliable and scientific way of measuring intelligence. However, such tools or tests are not readily available in schools. So in the absence of these tools, the teacher can use behavioral indicators of intelligence to get a feel as to where their students are, since these indicators are grounded on the corresponding theories of development. In many ways, intelligence provides the foundation for the thinking processes in learning, like thinking, knowing, and problem solving. It defines what one can or cannot learn. In other words, how learners approach that deal with various learning materials depends to a certain extent on their level of intelligence. This make up for individual differences in how learners learn. To emphasize a point, All these theories of intelligence attempt to explain the nature of intelligence, and its importance should not be overlooked because of its impacts on the teaching learning process. A teacher should be able to consider the abilities of his students when planning for instructional materials and experiences, and in implementing them in the classroom. Knowing that there is such concept as individual differences, teacher would be able to adjust and address different needs and abilities of student with appropriate classroom experiences and learning materials. And that would be all for my report. Thank you everyone for listening and hope you learned something from this topic and discussion. Bye!